The crux of environmental storytelling is saying much without saying anything at all. Scorn has no dialogue to speak of, but the world we inhabit is a literal take on a living, breathing world, one in the midst of decay, mutating into a grotesque fusion of flesh and machine, one that seems not only alive but growing, angry, and hostile. By leaving so much unsaid, it is the player's job not only to crack Scorn's puzzles, but to piece together its story. Not an easy task on first inspection, or even second and third, but the longer I spend with this game, the more its symbolism latches onto me like a parasite. Scorn's swirling story has an undercurrent of intrigue that lasts from start to finish, even if nothing seems clearer by the end.
Well, good luck trying to explain that video.
But does that intrigue last after digesting the game, playing it again, and digging into what Scorn is all about? And is symbolism alone enough to support a narrative? Allow me to give you my take as I recap, explain, and analyze the story of Scorn. Encased in bone-yellow roots with flesh scarred over time, or perhaps still forming, I wake. As I struggle to remember or learn how to walk, time flits between two scenes. A bulging pillar in a dim cavern, a structure battered by hot, bitter winds. I crawl closer and the ground gives way. I fall. I wake once more, deep underground. My pace has quickened along with my intentions while my surroundings stand eerily still. I am the sole occupant of this place, it seems, and that's not the intention. The door obstructing my way needs two people to operate. By retrieving this pod from the wall, though, I get some company. Not company in a let's catch up over coffee sense, but company nonetheless. Transporting this thing along the tracks, I lead it to a contraption that requires the human touch to operate. I pull the switch and the machine does the rest. A gruesome means to an end, no doubt, but I got what I came for. Given its quality of life, maybe death was a mercy, and death is not uncommon in this place. Slowly I find that life is prevalent too, if only in its early forms. I'm in an incubation chamber where glowing sentinels fertilize pods that I attach to a homogeneous tower wrapped in veins. But the process overloads the tower, perhaps after laying dormant for too long. It erupts, showering me in a hot and sticky white fluid. I could have worded that better. I am submerged in the liquid and unable to move. I pass out. I wake once more, illuminated only by a pinkish hue that wants to breathe. Again, I'm encased in a bony shell, my personal cocoon that I'm ready to hatch from. I lurch backwards and break out of the womb, my descent briefly halted by some kind of tether. A mother's tether to their child. I release it and am born anew. My brothers and sisters surround me, but none have survived. My mother is, well, she's a giant wall, and the birthing ward looks less than inviting. I have no choice other than to move forward, stumbling as far as my eyes will allow. The last of my kind, yet there is something else in this wasteland. It's not alive, but it's certainly not dead. More than anything, it seems to be growing, laying claim to this decaying land with no one present or willing to stop it. My newborn legs take me to the nearest structure, battered by hot, bitter winds. That sounds familiar. This place looks familiar, yet different, caked in a skeletal crust, new organic matter growing over what was there before. How much time has passed? Real company at last. Not company in a let's plan societal reform over a bottle and a half of wine sense, but there's certainly an attachment there. A deep and disturbing attachment. Incapable of separating myself from this creature, I continue on and am led back to the start. The same cavern in which I began succumbed to the sands of time. I piece together a key that fertilizes seed pods. A human emerges with fully formed muscles and smooth skin, much different to myself, but it does not survive. Perhaps I birthed it prematurely. Another life lost, but I got what I came for. Tools to help me progress, conveniently held in place by the thing around my waist. Although the further I get, the more it tries to bury inside me, embedding itself so deep that I can't tell where I end and it begins. At the lowermost point of Scorn's world lies the largest abscess I've seen, a hulking giant growing like a tumor. It's not openly aggressive, but understandably doesn't react well when I operate the machine it's growing over. At the pull of a lever, sharp steel platforms jut out of its body, causing it to shriek out in pain. Moving through them, I can access the ground floor console and raise more contraptions to the central carriage. Creatures pour from orifices in the ground and walls, flocking to protect their queen. Meanwhile, the symbiote is taking over, consuming more and more of my physical body. My progress slowed. I finally unlock the mechanism to the carriage and it rises up like an elevator, bringing the giant life form along with it. It barely survives the process, its groans climbing through the open space. I get on a monorail, shooting through spine-like tunnels toward a temple that has a distinct air of finality about it. The temple's interior is adorned with strange murals displaying procreation, the spark of life, the stages of childbirth, and unfamiliar images too. Alien creatures possessing a human mind, statues with synapses that have forged together in a tangle of amethyst sinew. These are not statues, they're people. Real people no longer alive, at least not in their physical form. The sky suggests they may still be conscious together. On the floor below, I have more company to tend to. Not company in a, let's stick you in a biomechanical body for you to take control of, so I can shoot you whilst inside and then blend you down into a fine soup. Oh wait, yes, it's exactly like that. I try to feed the mixture into these sarcophagi, decorated with monuments of birth rather than death, but the symbiote has literally taken hold. I am incapacitated. There's no hope other than to break free, first cutting it from my arm before a full extraction. I now see firsthand what my parasite has become. I do not know what it intends to do, but I am not waiting to find out. I didn't kill the thing, but at least I'm free of it. I can now return to feed this concoction to the graves, or are they wombs? And I rise to the temple's nave. But my injuries are too great. I can barely walk, barely stand. I hoist myself onto a circular operating table and a mechanical doctor tends to my wounds, or so I thought. It slices me open, removes the top of my skull and flings my brain to the heavens. I reawaken possessing the body of the pregnant being. It was not a monument, it was a womb, and I am reborn. The doctor is still hacking at my physical form. I push it aside, pick up my limp body and move to the exit. I step outside. Great exoskeletons guide the way. I continue forward, unable to stop, a clouded portal in front of me. Is this the afterlife? A path to a higher power? Has my struggle been worth it? I must know. But my steps are faltering. I grind to a halt. The perspective shifts back to my physical body, cradled by the being. The scramble of claws on stone. At the foot of the stairway to my ascension, I am stopped forever. Neither living nor dead, neither one nor the other, not I, but we. So like I said, there is a lot of room for questions and contemplation by the time Scorn's credits roll. The Scorn art book holds lots of useful information and will help us answer some of those questions. So let's start at the end. The walk toward that ethereal gate, progressively slowing down, happens because your tether to the hive mind is stretching to its limit. At the very end, it finally breaks, which is why the perspective shifts back to the protagonist's physical body. It is that body which gets taken over by the symbiote with these new humans, called shells in the Scorn art book, standing idly by with no one left to possess them. The parasite is the player character from the start of the game. So you play as one person until you're embraced by men that work out at sea. You then control a different person, and the parasite we find in that place when we return to it is the mutated form of the previous player character. Notice how that once the parasite latches onto you, you magically retrieve the gun you had before. It's attached to the parasite's tail. It's also made like quite apparent in the art book, so don't even have to get detective-y with it. The parasite stalks you for a while before attacking, as if it is drawn to us. Perhaps it's protecting its territory, or perhaps there's a deeper connection between the two protagonists. We see the perspectives spliced together at the start, the opening cinematic, so it may suggest there is a shared consciousness there, and that these were two beings that were destined to be entwined by the end. The murals of the temple, called Polis, give the best idea of the protagonist's purpose. We are a human species, a branch of Homo sapiens from the distant future or past, whichever you prefer, and a species intent on connecting to a higher consciousness. In this world, organic matter is fuel. We begin in a factory farm for humans, where mutilated bodies are disposed of without afterthought. Hundreds of bodies cast aside, their physical forms disposable. These homogeneous globs keep Scorn's gears turning, while the privileged take pilgrimage to Polis to transfer their consciousness into a shell. This iteration of new human with no distinction between man and woman, all capable of bearing children while remaining able-bodied, a massive increase to reproduction and productivity. Once the fuel ran out, for whatever reason, civilization ground to a halt, and over time, the rot set in. But it did more than eat away at structures. It grew a mind of its own, and over time it became the new inhabitant of this place. This must have happened while the humanoid species were still, present in their masses, because there are those dedicated machines that extract the parasite, and presumably the parasite is part of this overall growth. It's just become something slightly more because it has latched on to a living/dead being. But despite their best efforts, the humanoids were not able to stymie this growth. It had buried itself too deep, mutating faster than they could manage. Perhaps the transfer from human to shell was a way to fight back. Perhaps the portal was a means of escape, but whatever the cause, Scorn's world has a new, permanent resident by the time we experience it. This is seen in its most grotesque and beautiful form within the temple, the hive mind. The infestation's central nervous system, its birthplace, its origin, the webbing of combined consciousness that, I think, became sentient and then decided to try and take over Scorn's world. If our, by which I mean the humanoid race, including the two characters that you play, if our goal was to move consciousness into an evolved form and achieve a higher purpose, then we succeeded to some extent. The player inhabits multiple characters that may share a consciousness from the very start. Yet the present world of Scorn is in decay, a showcase for the terrors of disconnecting the mind from the body, the risk of manufacturing consciousness. In doing so, you may become neither one nor the other, but some grotesque combination of both. So that's my theory, or my interpretation, you could call it. And that will have to do, as that is all the concrete information we have on Scorn, and that is its biggest weakness. Yes, even worse than that god-awful combat. I do feel a little contradictory criticizing Scorn for leaving so much up to player interpretation when, you know, the last game I played, Immortality, I was praising for doing pretty much the exact same thing. Literally, I couldn't stop going on about the masterful layering of Immortality's story, but I said that because I felt like if I just kept digging deep enough, I would uncover the truth. With Scorn, I've hit bedrock. I cannot go any deeper. Scorn's marriage to the unfamiliar is by design. We abandoned the notion that we are going to understand everything we see in the game, says concept artist Filip Akovic. That's particularly hard for some people to accept. They tend to require some explanation. How was this done? Who did this? And for what purpose? I very much put myself in that category. That is the way it is done, has always been done, and to be fair, Scorn's decision to fly in the face of traditional storytelling does make it unique, to be sure. I suppose the intention is that by not knowing what's going on in the story while we are playing it, that leaves us feeling, you know, uneasy, on edge, and unsure, which are integral feelings to the horror genre. Many great stories and great worlds inspire interpretation and theorizing, but it's usually done with the knowledge that the author is hiding something big. To discover that Scorn's developers and creatives know as little as we do, that does create a sense of unease. The idea that Scorn is a thing of its own creation, waiting, festering, potentially evolving as an unkempt growth. But I'm not sure if that's enough to bring me back to it. Environmental storytelling is one of my favorite things a game can do. Exploring spaces to uncover hidden truths, hints, history. It's what separates games from other mediums. Scorn has that by the bloody bucket load, but it's not supported by plot or character, and that hollows it out, for me personally at least. Some people may be more comfortable associating with Scorn as place and place alone. That's not unreasonable, but for me, connection to a character grounds the player in the moment, and then Scorn's environment would be able to shine in all its sickly glory. Give us something to cling on to while our feet dangle off a ledge that looks like a spinal column as we're forced to swallow our own vomit. If we witness how a character has changed, even if the world is a nasty, unforgiving place beyond redemption, we have something to take away from it. You might call it a message. I have played this game 3 times and I have scoured the art book and I cannot find a concrete message. There are plenty of themes present. Entropy, birth, death, and rebirth, the futile pursuit of something greater, but what is it trying to say through these themes? I cannot conclusively say. You can take a stab at it. The mind and body are intrinsically connected, and you cannot have one without the other. The more you try to pry the two apart, the more aggressively they fight back. I just cannot say that this was definitively the author's intent. And that's alright. Doesn't really matter. None of this really matters, does it? Environment is crucial to good world building, and Scorn's environment feels very real and alive even though it is dying. But alive or dead, a world should be an accessory to the things living within it. I won't return to Scorn so I can see every perturbed thing it holds. My personal interest lies in why the world is in ruin, who inhabited it before, the source of the infestation, and there is simply no answer to that. By tying everything to the environment, Scorn is essentially a love letter to the visual design of H.R. Giger, if that lover had a gore fetish, which they probably do because they're in love with geeks. No offense to the guy, it's just that, you know, if your definitive art style is like sex and gore, then, you know, you just kind of ask some questions. Scorn is an interesting love letter, without a doubt, but it is more art piece than story. And that's okay. Again, none of this really matters. It's not okay for my channel because we're on about stories. Also, the combat is kind of terrible, which I don't like to bring up gameplay mechanics in these videos because it is so focused on story, but I do feel like I have to mention it because it made those repeat playthroughs, especially the one where I was just gathering footage, quite a chore. Thanks for watching. The channel's been going a year, which is kind of crazy, so thanks for all the support. It really means a lot. I don't usually like tail these videos. I like to just like let them finish in a nice, cleaner way than me rambling on. But also I wanted to say I'm slightly changing the format of the videos going forward, starting with this Scorn sort of series, I suppose you could call it, of videos. Starting with streaming. Any video that I want to cover on this channel, the process is going to be stream it here on YouTube, just to give some first impressions, but also like hang out with you guys and get to know you a little bit better. Then create like a supercut of the streams, something a bit more lighthearted, you know, that kind of thing, before then doing a more deep dive video, because that just gives me a little bit more time to work on the videos that need a lot more time, because I'm playing these games multiple times anyway. So that's about it. You probably don't care, but while I'm here, please leave a like on the video if you liked it. Follow me on Instagram, links down below. Fucking, I hate this. I hate doing this. Drop a like, hit the fucking sub button with all the might you've got. Hit the bell as well so you know everything I'm doing at all times, because all I care about are views. This will be the last one of these I do, but genuinely thanks for watching. However long you've been with the channel over this tumultuous year, thank you so much. It means a lot. It genuinely does. I'll see you on the next one, genuinely. Bye. Fucking bye. Get me off the screen.